Can you turn off aging genes? What if the number on your birth certificate didn't matter? What if aging wasn't something that just happens to you, but something you could actually control? Across the globe, scientists are uncovering something extraordinary. Your body carries switches. And some of those switches decide whether your cells get older or stay young. Imagine waking up each day, not wondering how much time you have left, but realizing you might have the power to slow the clock down. Or even rewind it. Because aging isn't just about time, it's about which of your genes are turned on, and which are turned off. And here's the wildest part. You might be doing things every day that tell your body to age faster, without even knowing it. But before we uncover the habits that silently sabotage your genes, we need to understand the real question. What are aging genes, and are they truly our destiny? When most people think of aging, they picture wrinkles, gray hair, and aching joints. But beneath the surface, something much deeper is at play, something written into our very cells. You've probably heard that your genes determine your future. That they're the blueprint you're stuck with. But here's what science now knows. Genes aren't fate. They're instructions, and instructions can be followed, ignored, or even changed. Inside your DNA, there are specific genes closely tied to the aging process. Some of them accelerate cell damage, inflammation, or breakdown. Others help repair DNA, clear out damaged cells, and extend lifespan. Researchers have identified key players in this process, genes like FOXO3, which is linked to extreme longevity, or mTOR, which drives growth and metabolism, but when overactive, may speed up aging. Then there are sirtuins, a group of proteins that regulate cell health and stress resistance. These are often called longevity genes, for a reason. But these genes don't operate in a vacuum. They respond to signals from your environment, your lifestyle, your daily choices. Think of your genome like a massive library. Your DNA contains all the books, all the stories you could possibly tell. But just because a book exists doesn't mean it gets read. Something, or someone, decides which books to pull off the shelf. That's where the real story begins. Because scientists have discovered that it's not just what's written in your genes that matters, it's which genes get activated and which stay silent. And this activation process isn't random. It's influenced by everything from the food you eat, to the sleep you get, to how often you move your body or calm your mind. It's not just nature. It's nature plus nurture. And this concept has a name. Epigenetics. And it's changing everything we thought we knew about aging. Because if your environment can tell your body which genes to switch on, and which to keep quiet, then maybe aging isn't just something that happens to you. Maybe it's something you help write, day by day. So how does this gene switching actually work? And more importantly, can we control it? Let's find out. Epigenetics 101. Rewriting the story of your DNA. Imagine your DNA as a piano. The keys are fixed, just like the genetic code you were born with. But the music that plays? That depends on the pianist. Epigenetics is that pianist. It's the science of how your behaviors and environment influence the way your genes are expressed, without changing the genes themselves. In other words, epigenetics determines which parts of your DNA are read and turned into action, and which stay silent. And this isn't just theory. It's observable. We now know that identical twins, who share the exact same DNA, can age very differently depending on how they live. One may develop chronic diseases early, while the other stays active and sharp into their 90s. Why? Because their epigenetic patterns, the way their genes were turned on or off, diverged over time. These patterns are shaped by what you eat, how you sleep, the air you breathe, how often you exercise, even how much stress you carry. All of these factors can trigger chemical tags, like DNA methylation or histone modification, that either silence harmful genes or activate protective ones. It's like adding sticky notes to certain pages in your genetic instruction manual, some that say, "Read this often," and others that scream, "Skip this entirely." And those tags don't just affect how you age, they can determine how fast you age. Studies show that individuals with lower biological age, meaning their cells look and function younger than their actual age, tend to have epigenetic markers that support longevity. And the most remarkable part? These markers can be influenced within weeks through lifestyle changes. This is the scientific frontier where hope meets biology. Where your past choices don't have to define your future health. Because unlike your DNA, your epigenome is flexible. It adapts. It responds. It evolves. And it's given rise to a powerful question. If we can influence our gene expression through lifestyle, could we go even further? Could we not only slow aging, but actually reverse it? That's exactly what one groundbreaking study at Harvard set out to test. And the results weren't just surprising, they were something scientists once thought impossible. Reversible aging? Meet the Harvard study that shocked the world. For decades, aging was considered a one-way street. Cells degrade, tissues weaken, and eventually, the body fails. Scientists accepted it as an inevitable decline, a biological script that could be delayed, but never rewritten. But in a quiet Harvard lab, something happened that turned that belief upside down. Dr. David Sinclair, a geneticist at Harvard Medical School, and his team set out to answer a radical question. What if we could restore youth, not just slow aging, but reverse it? Their experiment began with mice. These animals were genetically engineered to mimic the effects of aging, poor vision, muscle loss, and sluggish behavior. In every measurable way, these mice were old. Then came the twist. Using a cocktail of 3 specific genes, known as Yamanaka factors, the researchers initiated partial cellular reprogramming. These genes, discovered years earlier, had the power to rewind cells back to a more youthful state. Not embryonic, but functionally younger. And what they saw stunned the scientific world. The mice didn't just stop aging, they regained capabilities they had lost. Their vision improved. Tissues repaired. Organs began to function like they did when the mice were young. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't marginal. It was biological rejuvenation, visible under a microscope and in behavior. The implications are massive. If aging is driven by the epigenome, the part of our biology that tells our genes how to behave, then maybe the key to longevity isn't replacing damaged parts, but resetting the system itself. And while this technology is still in early stages for humans, the research sends a clear message. Aging is more fluid than we thought. Our cells carry a memory of youth. They know how to be young. They just forget over time. And perhaps, just perhaps, we can remind them. But here's the part that matters right now. You don't need gene therapy to influence your epigenome. Because the same biological systems that Sinclair's lab targeted, DNA repair, inflammation control, mitochondrial health, are already responding to the choices you make each day. Which brings us to the real power you have right now. The habits that silence aging genes and activate the ones that keep you young are already within your reach. Turning off the clock. Habits that silence aging genes. You don't need a lab coat or a billion-dollar research facility to begin influencing how your body ages. Because the most powerful switches for your aging genes are right in front of you, woven into the habits you choose every single day. Let's start with food. Caloric restriction and intermittent fasting have been shown to activate genes linked to longevity, particularly SIRT1 and AMPK. These genes support cellular repair, enhance energy metabolism, and reduce inflammation, one of the major drivers of aging. When you give your body space between meals, it stops focusing on digestion and starts focusing on rejuvenation. Next, movement. Exercise, especially strength training and high-intensity intervals, does more than just tone your muscles. It literally tells your cells to stay young. Physical activity boosts mitochondrial function, regulates insulin, and turns off the pathways that lead to cellular breakdown, particularly by influencing the mTOR gene. Even a brisk walk can shift your genetic expression toward youth. Sleep, often overlooked, is another powerful reset button. While you rest, your brain and body undergo repair at the cellular level. Melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep, also acts as a gene protector, guarding your DNA from oxidative stress. Deep, consistent sleep reduces the activation of genes linked to inflammation and accelerates telomere repair, those protective caps on your chromosomes that shorten with age. Then there's stress, and its silent, chronic impact. When your body is constantly in fight or flight mode, it increases cortisol, suppresses immunity, and activates aging genes tied to disease and decline. But practices like mindfulness, deep breathing, and meditation? They've been shown to lower inflammatory gene expression and promote genetic pathways associated with resilience and healing. Even connection matters. Studies show that people who nurture meaningful relationships tend to have longer telomeres and healthier epigenetic profiles than those who live in isolation. Love, purpose, laughter, these aren't just emotions. They're signals your genes respond to. Each of these habits sends a clear message to your body: protect, repair, thrive. You are not helpless in the face of aging. You are, in fact, one of the most powerful forces shaping it. And while these natural strategies are game changers, science is also pushing the boundaries far beyond lifestyle. Because in the labs of today, researchers are now rewriting aging itself, not with habits, but with code. Let's take a look at the future: gene therapy and the radical potential of engineered longevity. Gene therapy and the future of anti-aging. What if aging wasn't just something we could slow down, but something we could program differently from the inside out? That's the promise of gene therapy, a bold frontier where scientists aren't just influencing gene expression through lifestyle, but directly editing the genetic code itself to combat aging at its root. One of the most promising tools in this field is CRISPR, a revolutionary gene editing technology that acts like molecular scissors, allowing researchers to cut and replace sections of DNA with extraordinary precision. In early animal studies, CRISPR has shown potential to correct genetic mutations, boost resistance to age-related diseases, and even restore youthful function to damaged tissues. Then there's gene reprogramming, where researchers use Yamanaka factors, not just to turn back the clock on aging cells, but to reboot them entirely. Imagine a future where we can reset the epigenetic wear and tear in our cells with a single injection or pill, reversing cellular damage the way we reboot a computer. In trials with mice, partial reprogramming has already reversed age-related blindness and extended lifespan. And while human applications are still in the experimental phase, the groundwork is being laid for therapies that could one day pause, slow, or even reverse biological aging, not just for the lucky few, but for millions. Biotech companies around the world are racing to turn these breakthroughs into treatments. From extending telomeres to enhancing mitochondrial performance, researchers are developing therapies that could allow us to live longer, not just chronologically, but functionally, with the energy and health of someone years, or even decades, younger. But this isn't science fiction anymore. The first generation of anti-aging gene therapies is already being tested. Clinical trials are underway. And while we're not yet at the point of mainstream accessibility, the pace of progress is staggering. The question is no longer, can we manipulate aging at the genetic level? It's how far are we willing to go? Because with this power comes enormous responsibility. If we can edit life itself, should we? What are the risks? The unintended consequences? And as gene editing becomes more real, so do the ethical shadows that come with it. Let's explore the other side of this technology. The risks, the fears, and the unknowns we can't afford to ignore. The dark side. Should we be afraid of gene editing? The idea of editing our genes to reverse aging sounds like a miracle. But with every leap forward in science, there's a shadow that follows close behind. Gene editing isn't just powerful, it's irreversible. And that power raises uncomfortable questions. What if changing one gene to slow aging accidentally activates another that increases cancer risk? What if reprogramming cells to behave younger causes them to divide uncontrollably, becoming tumors? In theory, tools like CRISPR offer precision. In practice, we're still learning about off-target effects, mistakes in the code that could ripple across systems we barely understand. Aging is complex. Interfering with it could trigger consequences we can't yet predict. Then there's the ethical dilemma. If gene-based anti-aging becomes a reality, who gets access? Will it be a luxury for the wealthy, deepening inequality? Will it create a society divided not just by income, but by biological age? Imagine a world where the rich can afford to live to 120 with the vitality of a 40-year-old, while everyone else ages the old-fashioned way. What happens to jobs, retirement, relationships, even identity? And what about genetic enhancement? If we can turn off aging genes, what stops us from editing for intelligence, appearance, or physical ability? Where's the line between healing and enhancement, between medicine and designer biology? Many scientists are urging caution. Not because they oppose progress, but because they know that biology doesn't always cooperate with ambition. Small tweaks can have massive downstream effects. What seems like a breakthrough today could become a public health disaster tomorrow. There's also the fear of misuse. In the wrong hands, gene editing could be weaponized. Or worse, commercialized irresponsibly by companies chasing profit over safety. So yes, gene editing holds promise. But it also demands deep responsibility. We must ask not only what we can do, but what we should do, and who decides. Still, while the future unfolds in labs and legislation, there's something equally important happening outside the spotlight. Real people, not scientists or billionaires, but everyday individuals, are already reshaping their aging journey. They're not editing genes, but influencing them through deliberate, evidence-based choices. And the results? They're nothing short of inspiring. Let's look at how people are changing their biological destiny, without touching a single strand of DNA. Case studies. Real people, real change. You don't need a lab or a PhD to influence your genes. Some of the most remarkable stories of slowed, or even reversed, biological aging are coming not from research journals, but from real people making powerful changes in their everyday lives. Take the case of Robert, a 52-year-old accountant who used to live on fast food and 5 hours of sleep. After learning about epigenetics, he overhauled his lifestyle. He began intermittent fasting, cut out processed sugar, started strength training 3 times a week, and prioritized sleep. Within 1 year, his biological age, as measured by a DNA methylation test, dropped by 5.6 years. His blood pressure normalized. His energy returned. And he now looks and feels younger than he did at 40. Then there's Linda, a 60-year-old teacher, who had been struggling with brain fog, fatigue, and early signs of insulin resistance. She began a mindfulness meditation practice, adopted a Mediterranean diet rich in polyphenols, and walked outdoors every morning. Within 6 months, not only did her inflammation markers plummet, but she also experienced measurable improvements in cognitive function. Her doctors were stunned. These aren't isolated stories. In a groundbreaking study published in Aging, participants who followed an 8-week diet and lifestyle intervention, focused on whole foods, exercise, stress reduction, and sleep, reversed their biological age by an average of 3.23 years. In just 8 weeks. And perhaps most inspiring of all are the centenarians, people living past 100, not in hospitals, but in motion. From Okinawa to Sardinia to Costa Rica, these individuals don't rely on gene editing. They rely on habits, movement, connection, purpose, real food, and rest. Their secret isn't a supplement. It's a lifestyle that tells their genes, every day, stay strong. Stay resilient. Stay young. These stories matter because they prove a simple but powerful truth. Your genes may load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. And while dramatic turnarounds are impressive, you don't need to change your whole life overnight. Small, consistent changes, your morning routine, your lunch choices, your wind down at night, can begin sending new signals to your DNA. Which brings us to the most practical and empowering question yet. What does a gene reprogramming day actually look like? Your daily routine can reprogram your genes. You don't need to wait for the future of gene therapy to take control of your aging. You already have the tools, in your own daily routine. Every action you take is a signal to your genes. And those signals shape the way your body ages, not someday, but right now. So what does a gene-friendly day actually look like? Morning. Start with natural light exposure within 30 minutes of waking. This helps reset your circadian rhythm and optimizes melatonin production for later that night. Follow that with a brisk walk or a few minutes of stretching. Movement in the morning turns on genes linked to metabolism, energy, and anti-inflammation. Skip the sugar-heavy breakfast. Instead, opt for a protein-rich meal with healthy fats and polyphenol-packed foods, like berries, nuts, or green tea. These compounds are known to activate sirtuins and protect DNA from oxidative stress. Midday. If you're able, experiment with intermittent fasting by delaying your first meal or ending eating early. This activates cellular cleanup pathways like autophagy, which helps remove damaged components that accelerate aging. Take time for a 10-minute mindfulness break. Deep breathing or short meditation sessions have been shown to switch off genes linked to chronic stress and inflammation while promoting those connected to healing and longevity. Afternoon and evening. Get in moderate exercise. Even 30 minutes of walking, yoga, or bodyweight training can shift your gene expression in a positive direction. After dinner, dim the lights and reduce screen time. Blue light at night interferes with melatonin and disrupts your epigenetic rhythm. Wind down with a gratitude practice or light journaling. Emotions like appreciation and joy influence heart rate variability, which in turn affects your stress gene expression. Sleep deeply and consistently. It's not just rest, it's repair. During deep sleep, your body activates genes responsible for DNA maintenance, brain detoxification, and immune function. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. These small choices, repeated daily, create biological momentum. They reinforce the messages your body needs to hear. You are safe. You are healing. You are built to last. And if your routine holds that kind of power, then maybe it's time to ask yourself a much bigger question. Are you really a prisoner of your DNA, or are you its author? Your DNA is not a life sentence. It's a story, one that's still being written, every single day. You're not bound by your genetic code. You're in conversation with it. With every bite, every breath, every step, every choice, you're shaping the next chapter. Science may be unlocking the future of gene editing, but you already hold the most powerful tool of all, awareness. You can't change where you started, but you can change where you're headed. So start small. Start today. Start rewriting your biological story, not with fear, but with power. Because aging isn't just about time passing. It's about how you live while it does. If this message inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're just getting started. Your genes are listening. What will you tell them next?